Hey everyone. So, before this video begins, I'd quickly like to say thank you so much to Babbel for sponsoring this video. Get 65% off a Babbel subscription. That's just $5 a month by using the link in the description down below. Babbel is a language learning app that is really great for on-the-go learning. University studies have shown that 15 hours of Babbel equates to one whole semester of college Spanish. The great thing about Babbel is you can really take your time with your language learning and learn things that are actually adaptable to your situation. They use language for real life, so whether you're going on a trip and need some transportation-specific language, or you're looking to order for the first time in a restaurant, then Babbel always has the right specific language learning for you. The best feature I've found on Babbel is the flashcards, because it means that I can go back and go over everything that I've learned on Babbel so far. I really struggle to retain information, and flashcards are a way that I used to study in high school, so I really love to see this flashcard element on Babbel, so I can quick fire recap my vocab and see whereabouts I am with my language retaining process. Finally, Babbel has now launched their live virtual classes on the app, so you can sign up to be taught by certified teachers and have wonderful speaking practice in small groups of up to 6 people. As always, Babbel has really great games as well, so you can always make your language learning really fun, whether you're sat on the tube on the way to work or sat in a waiting room. You can find a way to pass the time by playing these games and also learn a little something at the same time. As you all may remember, I'm currently learning Spanish with Babbel, and I have promised you a Spanish video in September, so it will be coming next week. It was supposed to be today, but due to my recent stalker issues, I've had to delay it slightly, so I hope you don't mind. But I will link it in the comment section as soon as it is posted. So thank you so much to Babbel for helping me to create that for you, and when it comes out I hope you really enjoy it. So again, thank you so much to Babbel for sponsoring this video. Remember, get 65% off your Babbel subscription, which is just $5 a month, by using the link in the description box down below. Okay, I hope you enjoy this video. Okay, so today I'm going to be reading you the next 2 chapters of The Wizard of Oz, because a lot of you said that you would really like me to continue it, so hopefully we can get through the whole book and then make it a little bit of a playlist as well. Okay, so chapter 4, The Road Through the Forest. After a few hours, the road began to be rough, and the walking grew so difficult that the Scarecrow often stumbled over the yellow bricks, which were here very uneven. Sometimes, indeed, they were too broken or missing altogether, leaving holes that Toto jumped across and Dorothy walked around. As for the Scarecrow, having no brains, he walked straight ahead and stepped into the holes and fell at full length on the hard bricks. It never hurt him, however, and Dorothy would pick him up and set him upon his feet again, which he joined her in laughing merrily at his own mishap. The farms were not nearly so well cared for here as they were farther back. There were fewer houses and fewer trees, and the farther they went, the more dismal and lonesome the country became. At noon, they sat down by the roadside near a little brook, and Dorothy opened her basket and got out some bread. She offered a piece to the Scarecrow, but he refused. "I am never hungry," he said, "and it is a lucky thing I'm not, for my mouth is only painted, and if I should cut a hole in it so I could eat, the straw I am stuffed with would come out, and that would spoil the shape of my head." Dorothy saw at once that this was true, so she only nodded and went on eating her bread. "Tell me something about yourself and the country you came from," said the Scarecrow, when she had finished her dinner. So she told him all about Kansas and how grey everything was there, and how the cyclone had carried her to this queer land of Oz. The Scarecrow listened carefully and said, "I cannot understand why you would wish to leave such a beautiful country and go back to the dry, grey place you call Kansas. That is because you have no brains, answered the girl. No matter how dreary and grey our homes are, we people of flesh and blood would rather live there than any other country, be it ever so beautiful. There is no place like home. The Scarecrow sighed. Of course I cannot understand it, he said. If your heads were stuffed with straw like mine, you would probably all live in the beautiful places, and then Kansas would have no people at all. It's fortunate for Kansas that you have brains. Won't you tell me a story while we're resting? Asked the child. The Scarecrow looked at her reproachfully and answered, My life has been so short that I really know nothing whatever. I was only made a day before yesterday. What happened in the world before that is all unknown to me. Luckily, when the farmer made my head, one of the things he did was to paint my ears, so I heard what was going on. There was another munchkin with him, and the first thing I heard the farmer saying, How do you like those ears? They aren't straight, answered the other. Never mind, said the farmer. They are ears just the same, which was true. Now, I'll make the eyes, said the farmer. So he painted my right eye, and as soon as I could see, it was finished, and I found myself looking at him and everything around me with a great deal of curiosity, for this was my very first glimpse of the world. That's a rather pretty eye, remarked the munchkin, who was watching the farmer. Blue paint is just the colour for eyes. I think I'll make the other eye a little bigger, said the farmer, and when the second eye was done, I could see much better than before. And then he made my nose and my mouth, but I did not speak, because at that time I didn't know what a mouth was for. I had the fun of watching them make my body and arms and legs, and when they fastened on my head at last, I felt very proud, for I thought I was just as good a man as anyone. This fellow will scare the crows fast enough, said the farmer. He looks just like a man. Why, he is a man, said the other, and I quite agreed with him. The farmer carried me under his arm to the cornfield and set me upon a tall stick where you found me. He and his friends soon after walked away and left me alone. I did not like to be deserted this way, so I tried to walk after them, but my feet would not touch to the ground, and I was forced to stay on that pole. It was a lonely life to lead, for I had nothing to think of, having been made such a little while before. Many crows and other birds flew into the cornfield, but as soon as they saw me, they flew away again, thinking I was the munchkin, and this pleased me and made me feel like I was quite an important person. By and by, an old crow flew near me, and after looking at me carefully, he perched upon my shoulder and said, I wonder if that farmer thought to fool me with in this clumsy manner. Any crow of sense could see that you were only stuffed with straw. And then he hopped down at my feet and ate all the corn that he wanted. The other birds, seeing he was not harmed by me, came to eat the corn too. So in a short while, there was a great flock of them around me. I felt sad at this, for it showed I was not much good at being a scarecrow after all. But the old crow comforted me, saying, If you only had brains in your head, you would be as good a man as any of them, and a better man than some of them. Brains are the only things worth having in this world, no matter whether one is a crow or a man. After the crows had gone, I thought this over, and decided I would try hard to get some brains. By good luck, you came along and pulled me off the stake, and from what you say, I am sure the great horse will give me brains as soon as we get to the Emerald City. I hope so, said Dorothy earnestly, since you seem anxious to have them. Oh yes, I am anxious, returned the Scarecrow. It's such an uncomfortable feeling to know one is a fool. Well, said the girl, let us go, and she handed the basket to the Scarecrow. There were no fences at all by the roadside now, and the land was rough and untiled. Toward evening, They came to a great forest, where the trees grew so big and close together that their branches met over the road of yellow brick. It was almost dark under the trees, for the branches shut out the daylight, but the travellers did not stop, and went on to the forest. "If this road goes in, it must come out," said the Scarecrow. "And as the Emerald City is at the other end of the road, we must go wherever it leads us." "Anyone would know that," said Dorothy. "Certainly, that is why I know it," returned the Scarecrow. "If it required brains to figure it out, I never should have said it." After an hour or so, the light faded away, and they found themselves stumbling along in the darkness. Dorothy could not see at all, but Toto could, for some dogs see very well in the dark, and the Scarecrow declared he could see as well as by day, so she took hold of his arm and managed to get along fairly well. "If you see any house or any place where we can pass the night," she said, "you must tell me, for this is very uncomfortable walking in the dark." Soon after, the Scarecrow stopped. "I see a little cottage at the right of us," he said, "built of logs and branches. Shall we go in there?" "Yes, indeed," answered the child. "I am all tired out." So the Scarecrow led her through the trees, and they reached the cottage, and Dorothy entered and found a bed of dry leaves in one corner. She lay down at once, and with Toto beside her soon fell into a sound sleep. The Scarecrow, who was never tired, stood up in another corner and waited patiently until morning came. Chapter 5. The Rescue of the Tin Woodman. When Dorothy awoke, the sun was shining through the trees, and Toto had been out chasing birds around him and squirrels. She sat up and looked around her. The Scarecrow still standing patiently in his corner, waiting for her. "We must go and search for water," she said to him. "Why do you want water?" he asked. "To wash my face clean after the dust of the road, and to drink so the dry bread will not stick to my throat." "It must be inconvenient to be made of flesh," said the Scarecrow thoughtfully, "for you must sleep and eat and drink. However, you have brains, and it is worth a lot of bother to be able to think properly." They left the cottage and walked through the trees until they found a little spring of clear water, where Dorothy drank and bathed and ate her breakfast. She saw there was not much bread left in the basket, and the girl was thankful the Scarecrow did not have to eat anything, for there was scarcely enough for herself and Toto for the day. When she had finished her meal and was about to go back to the road of yellow brick, she started to hear a deep groan nearby. "What was that?" she asked timidly. "I can't not imagine," replied the Scarecrow, "but we can go and see." Just then another groan reached their ears, and the sound seemed to come from behind them. They turned and walked through the forest a few steps, when Dorothy discovered something shining in a ray of sunshine that fell between the trees, and she ran to the place and then stopped short with a little cry of surprise. One of the big trees had been partially chopped through, and standing beside it with an uplifted axe in hands was a man made entirely of tin. His head, arms and legs were only joined up his body, but he stood perfectly motionless, as if he could not stir at all. Dorothy looked at him in amazement, and so did the Scarecrow, while Toto barked sharply and made a snap at the tin legs, which hurt his teeth. "Did you groan?" asked Dorothy. "Yes," answered the Tin Man. "I did. I've been groaning for more than a year, but no one has ever heard before or come to help me." "What can I do for you?" she inquired softly, for she was moved by the sad voice in which the man spoke. "Get an oil can and oil my joints," he answered. "They are rusted so badly I cannot move them at all. If I am well oiled, I should soon be all right again. You will find an oil can on a shelf in my cottage." Dorothy at once ran back to the cottage and found the oil can, and then she returned and asked anxiously, "Where are your joints?" "Oil my neck first," replied the Tin Woodman. So she oiled it, and it was quite badly rusted, and the Scarecrow took hold of the tin head and moved it gently from side to side until it worked freely, and then the man could turn it himself. "Now oil the joints and as good as new. The Tin Woodman gave a sigh of satisfaction and lowered his axe, which he leaned against a tree. "This is great comfort," he said. "I have been holding that axe in the air ever since I rested, and I'm glad to be able to put it down at last. Now, if you oil the joints of my legs, I shall be able to be all right once more." So they oiled his legs until he could move them freely, and he thanked them again and again for his release, for he seemed a very polite creature and very grateful. "I might have stood there always if you'd not come along," he said, "so you've certainly saved my life. How did you happen to be here?" "We are on our way to the Emerald Cities to see the Great Oz," she answered, "and we stopped at your cottage to pass the night." "Why do you wish to see Oz?" he asked. "I want him to send me back to Kansas, and the Scarecrow wants him to put a few brains into his head," she replied. The Tin Man appeared to think deeply for a moment. Then he said, "Do you suppose Oz could give me a heart?" "Why, I guess so," Dorothy answered. "It would be as easy to give the Scarecrow brains." "True," the Tin Woman returned. "So, if you'll allow me to join your party, I will also go to the Emerald City and ask Oz to help me." "Come along," she said, and Dorothy added that she would be so pleased to have the company. So the Tin Woodman shouldered his axe, and they all passed through the forest until they came to the road that was paved with yellow brick. The Tin Woodman had asked Dorothy to put the oil can in her basket, for, he said, if I should get caught in the rain and rust again, I would need the oil can badly. It was a good bit of luck to have their new comrade join the party, for soon after they had begun their journey, again they came to a place where the trees and branches grew so thick over the road that the travellers could not pass. But the Tin Woodman set to work with his axe and chopped so well that soon he had cleared the passage for the entire party. Dorothy was thinking so earnestly as they'd walked along that she did not notice when the Scarecrow stumbled into a hole and rolled over the side of the road. Indeed, he was obligated to call her to help him up again. "Why don't you walk around the hole?" asked the Tin Woodman. "I don't know enough," replied the Scarecrow cheerfully. "My head is stuffed with straw, you know, and that's why I'm going to Oz to ask him for some brains." "Oh, I see," said the Tin Woodman. "But after all, brains are not the best things in the world." "Have you any?" inquired the Scarecrow. "No, my head is quite empty," answered the Woodman. "But once I had brains and a heart also, so having tried them both, I would much rather have a heart." "And why is that?" asked the Scarecrow. "I will tell you my story, and then you'll know." So while they were walking through the forest, the Tin Woodman told them the story. "I was born the son of a woodman who chopped down trees in the forest and sold the wood for a living. When I grew up, I too became a woodchopper, and after my father died, I took care of my old mother as long as she lived. Then I made up my mind that instead of living alone, I would marry, so I might not become lonely. There was one of the Munchkin girls who was so beautiful that I soon grew to love her with all my heart. She, on her part, promised to marry me as soon as I could earn enough money to build a better house for her, so I set to work harder than ever. But the girl lived with an old woman who did not want her to marry anyone, for she was so lazy she wished the girl to remain with her and do the cooking and housework. So the old woman went to the Wicked Witch of the East and promised her 2 sheep and a cow if she could prevent the marriage. Thereupon the Wicked Witch enchanted my axe, and when I was chopping away at my best one day, for I was anxious to get the new house and my wife as soon as possible, the axe slipped all at once and cut off my leg. This at first seemed like a great misfortune, for I knew a one-legged man could not do very well as a wood chopper. So I went to a tinsmith and had him make me a new leg out of tin. The leg worked very well once I was used to it, but my action angered the Wicked Witch of the East, for she had promised the old woman I could not marry the pretty munchkin girl. When I began chopping again, my axe slipped and I cut off my other leg. Again, I went to the tinsmith and asked for him to make me a leg out of tin. After this, the enchanted axe cut off my arms one after another, but nothing daunted, I had them replaced with tin ones. The wicked witch then made the axe slip and cut off my head, and at first I thought that was the end of me, but the tinsmith happened to come along and he made me a new head out of tin. I thought I had beaten the wicked witch then, and I worked harder than ever, but I little knew how cruel my enemy could be. She thought of a new way to kill my love for the beautiful Munchkin maiden, and made my axe slip again so that it cut right through my body, splitting me into two halves. Once more, the tinsmith came to my help and made me a body out of tin, fastening my tin arms and legs and my head to it by means of joints so that I could move around as well as ever. But alas, I had now no heart, so I lost all my love for the Munchkin girl and did not care whether I married her or not. I suppose she's still living with the old woman, waiting for me to come after her. My body shone so brightly in the sun that I felt very proud of it, and did not matter if my axe had slipped, for it could not cut me. There was only one danger, that my joints would rust, but I kept an oil can in my cottage and took care to oil myself whenever I needed it. However, there came a day when I forgot to do this, and being caught in a rainstorm, before I thought of the danger, my joints had rusted, and I was left to stand in the woods until you came to help me. It was a terrible thing to undergo, but during the year I stood there, I had time to think that the greatest loss I had known was the loss of my heart. While I was in love, I was the happiest man on earth, but no one could love who has not had a heart, and so I am resolved to ask Oz to give me one. If he does, I'll go back to the Munchkin maiden and marry her. Both Dorothy and the Scarecrow had been greatly interested in the story of the Tin Woodman, and now they knew why he was so anxious to get a new heart. All the same, said the Scarecrow, I shall ask for brains instead of a heart, for a fool would not know what to do with a heart if he had one. I shall take the heart, returned the Tin Woodman. Brains do not make one happy, and happiness is the best thing in the world. Dorothy did not say anything, for she was puzzled to know which of her two friends was right. She decided if she could only get to Kansas and Aunt Em, it did not matter so much whether the Woodman had no brains, or the Scarecrow no heart, or each what he wanted. Whatever worried her most was that the bread had nearly gone, and another meal for herself and Toto would empty the basket. To be sure, neither the Woodman nor the Scarecrow ever ate anything, but she was not made of tin nor straw, and could not live unless she was fed. Okay, there we go. So I will continue on with chapter 6 and 7 next time. It'll probably be in a couple of weeks. But I hope you've really enjoyed that. And thank you so much to everyone that's been supporting me recently. I really appreciate it. I've seen all your messages. I can't reply to them all because it's just a little bit overwhelming to sort of discuss things a lot, but thank you. I feel a lot more peaceful recently, so we're all good. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Good night. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me tonight. I just wanted to remind you that you can get 65% off a Babbel subscription using the link in the description down below, which equates to just $5 a month. Okay, good night, God bless, sweet dreams, and